on, tell me, let me guess. You were from the town that I love best. Talk Memphis, I wish you would. Talk Memphis, you sound so.
Last week on the show, we talked about, actually, it was about 2 weeks ago now. We took a little time off. So we talked about 7 ways, 7 ways millionaire real estate investors think. So I want to welcome Dan Butler to the show. Dan, how are you?
Good morning.
Good morning to you. This is a little bit different. It's going to take a little bit of adjusting, but
new day, new time.
New day and new time. So we're trying to reach our little bit different audience that might have a different time frame.
I know. I feel like I've already worked half a day
I know.
coming in here doing a radio show.
Usually this is the first thing we do in the morning,
right.
and now we've been busy already. Last week, Dan, 7 ways that millionaire real estate investors think. Today, we're going to continue into that series and talk a little bit more about that. So let's dive right into it. Let's recap a little bit.
Yeah.
Think about your, we talked about, your big why. And this is not the first time we've heard that or heard anybody talk about that, but your why and your purpose. We talked about it could be family, it could be a retirement goal, it could be just
autonomy,
passive
free time,
income, right?
passive income. It's what are you trying to achieve? What's the 20, 30 year when you just look out? Where are you trying to take this? And what do you want to And it changes. I mean, mine changed when I first started out. We've talked about that multiple times. Just I wanted to have choices. Right. I was in corporate world, started buying real estate. I bought it for choices. Didn't realize it was going to turn into
what it is now.
What it is now with multiple businesses and the rentals.
Multiple
and
markets.
The rentals now have changed a purpose for us.
Yep.
They are the foundation for all the other because they feed every other business. It gives you some sales.
That's right.
Gives us some
management,
maintenance.
Yes.
All that comes out of, and then just the byproduct of you can put lines on them to do something else. So instead of it being like, man, I want to get those things paid off and I'm going to live off the paid off houses. My why is different. It's like, no, that's the foundation. Now my why is to, only do what I want to do when I want to do it.
Yeah.
And which is coaching people and
I do think that's
deals.
interesting that when you started and it, I mean, that's a huge why, but I mean, when you started, it was one thing for you. Hey, let's retire because I'm currently in that mode, right?
That's right.
And it might change, it might not. But
you want to get what 50 houses? Is that your?
I get 55. I think is the number. If I get 55,
why don't you get 57?
You always tell me if I ever get to 55 paid off, I'll never stop.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like you got so many options.
I was texting with Russell the other day. Just I was like, man, that first one's the toughest, but then the toughest is like stopping. From buying, just because you see how much power it creates, and it's a long, it's a long journey, but it's totally worth it because it creates so many opportunities
for you. So we talked about your why. Think big goals, models, and habits. We reference Grant Cardone on here all the time and talk about his 10X book, and it's something that I've read or listened to actually in the car, listened to the whole thing, and my staff has read it, and they loved it. So think big on your goals and your models. We talked about that, and then go ahead.
I'll just say just push in your comfort zone. Non-financial related. We're working out these days. Do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then we run on the other days. But the Monday, Wednesday, Friday was just kind of we're doing some curls, doing some presses, and all that stuff. So we're trying to get to 1,000 push-ups. I got to 810 the other day, and it was a long day. I was like, that is a ton of push-ups. Yeah. At 9 o'clock, I told my wife, I was like, I'm not doing any more. I'm going to save that 1,000 goal for another day because I still got to work to get it. But
if you can't pick up your fork.
But I'm trying to push my body to the extreme.
Yeah.
I'm trying to instead of just going through my day and just doing some, keeping, active, I'm actually trying to push things to another level. And it's amazing. I found myself in that day of doing that extreme stuff. I was more focused, had the energy, you know what I mean? My metabolism was going faster.
It helps you in so many other ways.
And so, you apply that 10X on your habits for your business, And
it'll do the same thing.
Same thing. Don't, if you tiptoe and you're just analyzing left and right and, you got to do it.
Yeah.
You got to get out there and make it happen. Do your first deal, get it rolling. And then just what other habits, I wrote down this to start this morning. Russell actually told me about this too. Blinkist is an app.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to share that with the listeners. That's awesome. I read 3 books yesterday. You're like, what?
What do you mean? Tell me about that.
So it's just an app, and it gives you the highlights of each book. So like 4-Hour Work Week. So I learned the basic principles of the whole book without having to read through all the fluff and the story. I just got the meat. And I read through How to Win Friends and Influence People. I've read it twice, like book cover to cover. And so yesterday I got 10 of the principles. I remember 5 like off the top of my hand just because he hit them hard right away. And now I can reinforce that, those principles. Anyway, I just think that's a good one for our listeners. Like, pick some, Think and Grow Rich. I did that one as well.
Yep.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. All these things. If you're busy and you're in a car, LA, a lot of our friends are in LA and San Francisco. Pick up that app and push it through your phone, and
that'd be a lot of people that I bet we hear about that.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just like, it's a game changer for me. Because I'm in the car a lot and I'm going up to Jackson and West Tennessee, so it gave me a lot of opportunity. But just a quick tip.
So let's go into more of our 7 ways that real estate investors think. Think net worth.
Yep.
I mean, net worth, like some of these words when I started investing in real estate started popping in my head, and it was wealth and versus rich. And net worth and after everything that you're working on and you're dealing with and you're coming back to your net worth, what some of your total assets and liabilities, I guess, is just our definition, but what do banks get, when you think of that, combine that with your banking conversations, and what are you talking about when you say think net worth?
So for me, net worth, assets and liabilities is your basic accounting principle term, your balance sheet.
Yep.
We
all have to provide them to banks.
So on the bank side, they call it your personal financial statement.
Yep.
So all you're doing is listing everything you own that's worth anything, and then how much those assets cost you. So the more that number, the assets grows and your liabilities go down, your net sum is your net worth. And so, I've been reading a few books lately, and like some guys check it every day. I think that's a little extreme.
Seems like
but with rentals, think about this. With every rental you have, so how many you have? 6?
6 right now.
15-ish year notes?
All of them are 15.
15. So quick math, probably $400 notes. So that's $2,400 a month.
Yep.
So
that's about right.
If you'll bear with me a minute.
Yeah. No, that's about right.
$2,400 a month. Just guessing. Divided by 30 days in a month. So that's $80 a day on those 6 houses. And probably 30 to 40% of that is principal.
Yep.
So times, say, because it's just a third, 0.35, $28 a day that your net worth is going up with you just sitting here talking on the radio, sleeping.
Yeah.
So that's $1 per, $1 something an hour.
Yeah.
That's your net worth. I've never done that exercise. That's kind of fun.
It's a good little exercise.
I know. So
it makes me feel a lot better about what we're doing.
you're making a couple bucks an hour just sitting here doing on the radio that have nothing to do. You're not touching it. You're not. Does that make sense? You're not
clearly it
involved
goes
with it.
way up the more you get, but I mean, yes, that's right.
And that 30% turns, as the years go on, year 7, you're at 50%, and year 10, you're at 60 or 70%. So that $1.50 actually turns into probably by year 7 or 8, probably like $4. You know what I mean? So an hour,
Yeah, I mean, like, it's
that's just 6 houses
to add up.
Yeah, I mean, you get 50 houses, and that, what is that, 9 times that, so that's $10, $12 an hour. Once you're at the $50, even if it's leveraged, So it's just powerful stuff. So that's what you got to be thinking. Like, do you want to be a consumer? And you're going, this really changed. When I was reading through this and thinking through this, like everything you buy, is that consuming or is it investing?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so it changes. Buying a new shirt or buying that car or buying everything. So it really makes you, man. If I could just buy, instead of buying that, platinum edition car, maybe I buy the XLT and save $20,000. I'll put that $20,000 to work. Yep. And get that residual coming off that 20.
So I should have listened to that.
Yeah, really.
Assets and liability. How do you live each day to make that difference grow? I mean, that's something that I don't think, many people think about. It just went into that comment that you just made about, are you consuming or are you investing? That train of thought to me can change someone's whole outlook and their whole next 10 and 15 years. If you look at every single thing that you buy and purchase, is it going to be an asset or is it going to be a liability to you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just
and at some point, you know, I had lunch with my mentor this week, and I always love telling stories. I mean, some point he's like, man, I can't outspend what I'm making on, you know, what I'm building my wealth. My wealth now it's snowballing so fast, and he can just do quote unquote stupid stuff. Does that make sense? Like consuming stuff.
Take a chance,
buy this nice car, go on this nice vacation because of the snowball effect. Now, you know, that takes many years. We're not talking like, please don't hear what we're not saying.
He didn't start with us.
He didn't start with this. I mean, his kids will tell you they made him drink water at the restaurant, you know, all growing up. And I always remember that every time my kids, I mean, they asked me the other night, pink lemonade, you know.
No.
It's like, come on, just get water.
Get some water.
Yeah, save my $2. Give me my $2 back.
Well, if you're taking everybody, believe me, I got
That
3 kids,
up.
brother.
Yeah. So he did that for years, and now, you know, he doesn't, you know, have to or want to, you know, now if,
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, because he can't outspend, he can, being real stupid, but in just a general, like, how you live. And another tip that, you know, he told me he always lived at 25 to 30% of their income. That's how he lived off of that, and they poured the rest of it back in their business. Either savings or buying the next house or paying off a house or whatever. They were always pouring that. That's what, you know, for our listeners, that's what snowballs. You know,
you've got to be smart with this. This can't be something to where if you take off and you're 10 and 15, 20, 30 houses down the road, you're cash flowing really well, and you start living outside of your means. I mean, it can't. If you really want to take yourself to the next level, you've got to prepare and just think a little smarter.
And I would say have patience with that. Like, don't take that money and spend it on something. See if you can't live off, you know, your income you're making on your other jobs or whatever else you're doing, not off your investment income. Pour that money back in. So.
What else do you think of when it comes to think net worth?
Just, you know, I would get, you know, as a practical example, I would get your, you know, we've talked a ton about local banks. I just had that conversation with a guy on the way in to hear about some local banks, and, you know, and we met with the local bank this morning, and you start asking about the board. We talked about that before, but, you know, how are they looking at what's important to them on that personal financial
What do
statement?
they like to see?
What do they like to see? You know, don't just take what we're saying on the radio. Like, what do they like to see in each column? And, you know, will they count your 401k or your 529? Will that count towards your, you know, what they count as net worth, or is that kind of discounted because you can't get to it? You know, ask those kind of questions, you know, and then just get your own time frame of what, like I said, I think looking at your balance sheet, personal financial statement daily, I think that's a little bit extreme. Some people probably argue. I mean,
daily's extreme to me.
It'd be hard to track
you've got
that.
an enormous portfolio.
Yeah, and it'd just be hard to track that because you'd have to keep up with every payment every day, how much it's going down. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But to me,
daily, I mean, that seems.
I could see quarterly or, you know, 6 months,
even monthly. I could see somebody that said, "Hey, let's look at this every month."
You know, and I've told the story about the, you know, ripping and running 10 years ago, and just like, man, there's no, you know, your cash flow is net zero. And then you get your bank statement on like the apartments, and you pay down $3,000 in principal. You know, like that to me, I was like, okay,
there's the relief.
There's the relief. There's the okay, it's all worth it. You know, that's going to snowball on me because it end up turning into.
I've got some months. I have a vacancy right now, and I've got some month, and I had to put a little extra rehab into it. And this month there wasn't very much cash flow at all, but. When I look down and I say, okay, but I made a great payment on this note, and I locked that down. I mean, that's huge. I agree with you that it's, you know, you might not cash flow, but you're knocking down some principal every single month. What your financial decisions are doing for you, you know, you're investing, your net worth is going up, you're consuming, your net worth is going down. You just got to make it a habit. I mean, you've really got to surround yourself with the thought process of making all that a habit. And making it part of your life. Number 5 here. This is number 5 of our 7 ways millionaire real estate investors think. I've got Dan Butler here in the studio with me this morning. Think real estate. For some reason, governments promote home ownership and a lot of potential tax breaks. You know, I have some people that argue with me that say they want to rent. they don't want to own, they don't want to be settled down. But to me, there's so many different ways that homeowners can use.
That sounds like a Grant Cardone
Yeah,
statement.
it is. He'll tell you never to own anything.
Yeah.
I mean, or never to own your personal home.
house. Yeah.
I don't know that I see that, because I mean, for you, for one, is an example of being able to use that HELOC in your home over and over
Over
again.
and over. I've used it so many times. It's kind of funny.
Right.
If I hadn't paid that, I could have done it a different way. I mean, I think you lose out if you're paying, rent, for example. So I think the mortgage is going to be similar, right?
Very.
And
sometimes
over
the rent's
here,
higher.
the only caveat I could think of is that he thinks so you can be mobile.
Well, and but if you buy right with any kind of real estate, you should be able to move it. But that's something I just don't necessarily agree with. But let's go through these 8 things here. Expand on each one.
Why think about real estate? Why do we say it's accessible? Any of us can own it.
Anybody. There's no limits on if there's no, you don't have to fill out a form and say, hey, do you qualify to buy investment homes? No,
That's right.
I mean,
any of us can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've had many a show about how to figure that out. So if our listeners, want to talk to us about that, be glad to help. But, I think anybody in America, let's just stick to the U.S., can own either a personal home or investment house.
With the means, you certainly can.
Yeah, I mean, you can figure it out. It appreciates.
It certainly does. Even in markets like ours that we don't see a ton of appreciation, you see some. Our California investors that are listening right now, they see appreciation. It goes wild, but they don't have the cash flow out there. We don't have that appreciation here. You can get some. I told an investor yesterday, I was on the phone with him, and he's like, how much appreciation over the next 3 years do you see? And I just said, look, I mean, you're buying a $60,000 rental that's going to rent for $800. Like, I imagine in 3 years it's going to be worth $60,000 in rent for $800. That's one thing that makes Memphis so consistent.
Yep.
But you will get some appreciation. Some of the higher end stuff that you get even here in Memphis, you'll get a couple of points every year. Just a natural progression. What else do we think when we talk about think real estate?
I mean, to me, the biggest one for me was leverageable. As soon as you're paying
with this, man.
As soon as you're paying it down, you're squeezing that lemon, squeezing that lime, just trying to get that equity out and using it to do something else more powerful. So that's, you can do that with stocks, but it's tougher. Like you can leverage your stock market portfolio and get a line and stuff like that, but it's a lot.
Red tape for that's tough.
It's harder. And if your stocks go down, usually they call it a margin account. I think that's what it's called. Like if you had say $100,000 in your stock market account, they will loan you like 70% of that. But if the stocks go down, so say it was worth 100 and now it's worth 85 because Trump did a certain tweet that's sent the markets into, which does happen, right? We've seen it.
Yes,
it's crazy.
Certain does.
It's all emotion. It's not
it's
practical.
not facts, no.
So I'm joking about that, but so 85,000. Now you have to be at 70% of the 85. So you might have to put your money back in. So you've got to tie it up. It's just a little more risky. You know what I mean?
Imagine?
Like you just got to watch
saying,
it.
Hey, I need 20 grand or something.
Yeah. Now if you are disciplined and you don't do all the 70, keep yourself at 50%. I think you're hedging.
Be okay, but
yep.
Let's see what else we got. Number 5.
Yeah, rentable cash flow. You can improve them. Through sweat equity or using your contractors and stuff like that. The biggest one that another big one for me is it's deductible. You create a lot more deductions.
Yep.
There's a lot of expenses that you now can just attach to owning rental property or investment property. It's depreciable. So I think it's 27 and a half or 29 and a half. I think it's 27 and a half years.
Yeah, that you can
that you depreciate that asset. So that is a tax. So if it's $100,000, or $27,500 asset, you get to deduct $1,000 a year off your taxes. So you don't have to pay. You have to pay less. You get to pay less taxes on that.
Yep.
It's, things are deferrable. You know what I mean? Like you can. 1031s, different creative ideas.
We use those all the time.
Yeah.
I have clients that call. I mean,
all the time from California.
I literally have 2 I'm working right now.
That they've deferred their tax, to many, many years down the road.
Yep.
I know a guy that took $100,000 worth of investments and turned it into I think 2-something million, because he would sell it, buy it for 100, sell it for 150, take the 150, 1031 it, into 2 different investments. Now at 300, you know what I mean? He kept like treeing it down, and all of a sudden he had $2.5 million worth of stuff that he created without paying taxes on it.
I love this one. Slow to rise and slow to fall.
Yes, I thought the interesting statistic, for 30 years, real estate's only gone up and down an average of 4%. That's crazy.
Yeah,
where stocks are 16 to 18.
Just riding a roller coaster with it.
The average swing, if you take the of what you could see over an average year.
Mm-hmm.
Now we had the crash, 08, 9, 10. That's to me that was an anomaly, but on the 30-year mark, it's very stable.
Very stable. Yeah.
But 4% return on your money on a piece of real estate. So over 30 years, I don't know what that compounded is, but it's a lot of money. So $100,000 is going to.
It's the consistency that people should see in that is what I would think would hit home with them is, hey, on a 30-year period, we're not moving, much at all. Where there's stocks and stuff, you're going crazy up and down.
Yes.
Now let's get into think value, opportunities, and deals. Number 6, think value, opportunities, and deals. What's that mean to you, Dan?
And we were talking about this when we were working out this morning. Buying right.
I love it.
I
say it to everybody.
Think values, like know what the value of it is going in and be smart about that purchase. You know what I mean? Don't just jump in because, oh wow, it looks like a great house, or you know what I mean? Like you got to get your numbers dialed in of what you want the output to be, what you want the cash flow to be. The only problem I have on this is we're about to have a fire over here.
No, we're not.
Electrocute you.
No,
yeah,
go ahead.
we'll bill you. A guy called me a week or 2 ago, and he's like, I want to buy in Memphis, and I want to buy in these zip codes, and I want $300 net cash flow.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
it's a tall order.
And I was like, leverageable? And he said, yes. And I was like, I just don't. I was like, Pete said,
you didn't want to guarantee
all
that?
cash. Yeah, it's totally doable.
Yeah.
But you got to have money for the note. So that 300 he's talking about is just, I love for, listeners comment, ask questions about that, but I just don't know if that, I haven't seen an investment yet that pays that type of return with a leverage.
Right. Regular cash, you're fine.
Regular cash, I'm fine saying that, but leverage, I just don't think so. So, you got to have some realistic expectations around the values, but you need to take, don't just take somebody's word for it. That's probably the biggest thing I would say is like use Zillow, Redfin, Chandler Reports that's local with Wendy. We love her and what they do over there. Assessor's data, local experts, call me, we'll tell you, like, if you're going way higher, it sounds too good to be true or whatever that, may be. So
you can also consult your local real estate agent too for comps on the MLS.
That's right.
That Chandler Reports too. I love Chandler. That's something you can really hang your hat on.
So if you know how, you got to, I think Bigger Pockets has a analysis tab now. I think you can go in there and I don't know if you have to be a pro member or not, but it gives you access to where you can actually analyze deals. And they ask you for the input, so it actually a lot less thinking. Because when we first started out, we didn't know what to assume, And
the technology wasn't there either that it is now. It's so easy to access all this stuff. A lot of these websites are new; they're not 20 years old. You know what I mean? Like, and when you guys started, it's like I imagine you had to lean on your real estate agent, right? At the time,
and I think with our Lend business, we've kind of figured out, on the value side, people that are doing the fix and flips kind of stuff, they're always aiming, not always, majority of them have higher than realistic expectations on the sell.
Right.
And so, our hope and our education piece of it for us is to like educate them, like, are you sure, where are you getting your numbers and show us your comps and like how, because if you don't, that's going to make you pay the wrong number. So we're acting as a safety buffer, protector of our clients, because we're like, hey, you buy that $100,000 house, for for 100, and you say it's going to be worth 180,
Yep.
and your rehab's 140, and we look at it how we look at it and say, man, that thing's worth 155, 160 maybe. So is it worth all the risk? Have you got your rehab buttoned up to know that you could? Does that make sense? Like
It does to me. You've got to make sure that you understand it. All the areas of it, because some people just look at it. Oh, it's this price up here, and they don't understand how to get to that and everything that goes in between there and getting up to that value.
I listened to a guy on Bigger Pockets the other day that he does 10 flips a month, and he said 1 out of 10 loses money. And
Loses?
And that's a different situation because of the volume piece, I think he was doing 20. So 1 out of 10, so 2 out of 20 every month we're losing money. But think about doing 20 flips, how much of an operation, how many moving parts. So I guess I'm just kind of giving extreme, like that's somebody that's got a business and a process, and he's built in that loss is part of it. When you're first starting out and you're trying to build something, you do not want to be on the losing end of that flip.
I'll flip the occasional house, and man, I'm super snug on those values because it's not. And I told a guy this other, it's not my business. I can't afford
to be wrong.
No, to be wrong on those.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's why I'm limited to how many I do. But I've got to have a serious gap in there to where I completely, I know for a fact I'm going to make money no matter if something goes wrong 3 times. I know that I'm good.
And on the value side too, I'd say you have to know your team and know that like your commission is going to be whatever you tell us your commission is, you're going to stick to that number.
Yes.
Contractor, are you going to get the guy that comes in low and gives you 20 changeovers, or change orders, excuse me, or are you going to be the guy that's not going to finish? So that goes in the whole other segment of just vetting your contractors and stuff like that. But that really, to me, that goes back into your value. You got to understand that to be able to build your values, your numbers into the equation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No.
And if you don't have that buttoned up, you should be that much more conservative. So you have a contractor that told you 45 and you never used them before, man, you better put a 20% buffer in there, or ask others what they kind of buffer I would put 20.
You do?
I would say that if I'd never used the contractor before and
he quotes you 20, count on it being
25, 27, and if I still can make money, and pay my people back and all that stuff, then, maybe I move forward. But, you got to think that way versus, and that's one of I would say a weakness of mine. I think the best of everybody and think the best of every situation. So I would think, $20,000 rehab and, I'm going to make $30,000, and you look back and you got nickel and dime and all the stuff that people took advantage of you. And
That's right.
Anyway, so
but
it's kind of
you got to still understand the deal. I mean,
Yes.
like this all is encompassing. Is you have to understand every
values,
aspect and the value,
now you go after your opportunities.
right? Because once you understand it,
Right.
then you can go know what to look for.
Go to look for. You don't start. How many times we get people to just start looking?
A lot.
A ton. And I'm just looking to invest in Memphis, and I hear it's good, blah blah blah, and they don't understand anything about any of the zip codes or any areas or what the rent ranges are. They know nothing, And that's a dangerous place to be when you're first starting out, specifically. Like you don't know anything, and you're going to rely only on a local expert. I think that's playing with fire a little bit.
Yeah, because then if that local expert leads you the wrong way, then you've been led the wrong way. I think you have to understand it as well as trust some people that are on the ground. In my opinion, you've got to do both. Finally, number 7 here on 7 ways that millionaire real estate investors think action. Investing does require action, and this is one thing that I get frequently that I can speak on. I mean, I talk to a lot of investors that a popular term would be kicking the tires around. They're at dinner with their friends and family and talking about investing in real estate and how cool it sounds and doing all that. And then the next level investor, he's read a book or he's done a little homework and he thinks he knows of a guy that he's met up with once or twice that does some investing. So he's put forth a little bit of energy and effort into learning a little bit more about it. And then I get the guy that's listened to every podcast. He's talked to 5 agents here in town. He spoke with 5 management companies. He's talked to all 3 of our preferred banking clients, which I have one of these right now. I love him because he knows everything about it. You know what I mean? He knows everything about the market. He knows who not to go to here in town. He knows who to go right to in town. And he's banking clients. Banks he spoke with several times about getting rates and different things. Now he's ready.
Yeah.
That guy, that investor's ready. So it does require some action. You can't, you're not going to be able just to sit and hope and wish, that it comes about.
I think I always start when I think about the think action. You got, you talked about it first, and how I describe that as the observer.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Analysis by paralysis. Loves the idea.
Spreadsheet
loves the
king,
thought,
brother. He's a spreadsheet king, man.
But they just can't get over that hump. They can't get past themselves.
Right.
It's a limited belief that, and so they just don't buy anything. And it's sad because they're always thinking about it.
Well, they're always on Excel.
There's a guy I can think of that's at MIG. He's at every workshop every Saturday.
Yeah.
And
how many houses does he have?
I think he's got 2.
Oh man!
And he's had 2 for like 7 or 8 years. And I don't know what's
caused
hobby,
him. That's a hobby.
Well, and I mean, he wants so badly to do it. I have to applaud him for having 2.
Yes.
But for some reason, he just can't get past.
Is he financially able?
Yeah. Yeah. Got a good job. Good. So.
But he can't mentally get past buying another one.
Yeah. It's just something about it. And somebody needs to push him over the edge. Then you got the
don't call me, Dan. I'll have him buying 10 or 15 this month.
Then you got the collector.
Yeah,
that's kind of my second one when I think about it. Like that's just somebody that loves to own stuff. They don't really care about it being
a killer deal.
Yeah. It's more emotionally driven.
Yeah,
like think of somebody that spends all their money on Lucille Ball memorabilia or Coca-Cola. Think about those. You see that signs and refrigerator stuff, and those people just want. It's an emotional versus an investment.
And this person loves talking about owning real estate.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
they love, and which I do too. But I guess what I mean by that is they're going to tell you that they own real estate before they tell you how many kids they have.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because they're and I guess that could be looked at negatively or whatever. But
sure,
they're going to tell you about their real estate properties and how many they own. I mean, that's something you never share. That's something I know some other investors that have a decent sized portfolio. They don't really go into how many. It's just a process. This guy here, I think, loves to tell you how many.
Yeah. And then before we get to the one we really want to hone in on, the speculator, that's, in our culture index world, people, our behavior survey we do, that's the daredevil. That's one that just seeks action. It's going to buy the oil rig in the middle of Houston.
It's our buddy Spencer. He loves that action, man. He's all about that action, boss.
Action, boss. That's right. He's slinging houses.
That's right.
But high roller, thrill seeker.
Yeah.
That's more about where he's getting his energy and getting. I'm not talking about Spencer, but just the speculator.
That person. Yeah.
That person. They want to buy anything. They want to try anything. So they're either going to win big, or they're going to crash and burn. Those are usually with that speculator. That's the outcomes. There's not much of a middle ground. Like it's more of the sprint versus the marathon concept. Where's slow and steady versus fast out of the gate and then crash and burn. But
the observer,
the investor.
The investor.
Yep, the investor loves the opportunity and they buy the right stuff. They've listened to, the podcasts. They've done the bigger podcasts. They've called all the banks. They've called the property managers. They've done all that research. Now they know how to minimize their risk because they're going to partner with the right people. And find the houses with the right value, and then they're going to take action.
There's a guy that I was just talking about earlier. He's done it all. He's called all 3 of our banking partners. Okay. He's called 3 different property managers, including us. He's told me I was his 4th real estate agent that he'd spoke with that was in the investing world. And luckily enough, we grabbed him. We're closing on a 7-house package today.
Wow.
And he's
hope we're managing.
Huh? We are. Of course we are. Yeah, of course we are. But he is the prototypical client. So if you're listening out there and you're thinking, how do I get in front of Dean, or how do I, fast track myself to the very top of those types of conversations, and that is to know where you want to go. I mean, and know, I mean, you've listened to this entire show today, and we've talked about how, what these millionaire real estate investors think. I mean, that is one thing that really attracts me to somebody else, that gets me fired up and encouraged to work with them, is that they have educated themselves. They have gone and done the research in this market to figure out what does work and what doesn't work, and who does work and who doesn't work. So the investor is our ideal client. What else do you think about when we say think action here, number 7 on 7 ways?
Well, to kind of sum it up, the observer is really, they have no risk. So what ends up happening is there's no return. You know what I mean? Like, and that's extreme example. I mean, hopefully they're putting in money market or CD or something to get a return. So it's not an absolute no return, but it's the lowest possible return situation you could get. It's just because they're not trying. They're not pushing their comfort zone. They're not trying to push themselves out there. And then the extreme of that is the speculator. High risk, but man, could be high return, or it could be high negative return.
Major problems.
if that makes sense. And
That's right.
Then the collector, low risk, low return. So a lot of the stuff they buy, the Coke example, man, you can still sell that stuff.
Yeah,
and it might have some actually appreciative value, but
that's
very it's not retirement money. I mean. You watch all those shows that HGTV type stuff, and there's collectors, but it's a super super niche. How many people want to have a room full of Coca-Cola memorabilia?
I don't know any.
So I don't know either. I thought it was your family. No, I'm just kidding.
That's how we make them ends meet, man.
That's right. And then the investor,
Coca-Cola stuff.
Now Coca-Cola. I saw an awesome post on Facebook the other day. It was talking about the CEO of Coke versus investor in Coke, and it was Warren Buffett was the investor, and he made, I can't remember, I mean, tens of millions, maybe hundreds of, I mean, it was a crazy number from Coke shares, and the CEO made a couple million, which, don't get me wrong,
that's a couple million.
That's a couple million. That's huge.
Yeah.
But the 10x factor of
the way
Warren is just an investor. He's converted himself to that level where he's investor only, So if you think of Rich Dad Quadrant, we talk about that a lot. You're an employee, self-employed, business owner, and then investor. Those are the 4 that and we should all be striving to go into the investor quadrant, which that's where you get the residual incomes coming in from multiple streams. So
hey, I really we'll run out of time. I really enjoyed. This series, we've been doing it for a few weeks, but the 7 ways millionaire real estate investors think, I've enjoyed going through that and trying to give people a mindset of what, some of the people that we know and what investors that we're friends with and that we're colleagues with, that how they think and how they make themselves successful. I mean, I think it's a little bit different turn from us diving right into actual Memphis and telling you about street to street in Memphis. We'll of course get back to that, but I think the mix of being able to tell you a little bit about Memphis specifically and the emotion part of it and the mindset part of it is extremely key. So I've enjoyed going through this. You want to add anything before we go?
Yeah, kind of summarize for me, thinking through these 7 habits is. Turn from consumer to investor.
Yep.
Change your spending habits. Change how you approach, looking at your money. Find your purpose. Create some big goals, big habits. Think about same thing. Consumer. Think about assets and liabilities. You're always thinking about that personal financial statement for the bank. How you making that grow and be stronger. Stay focused. Pick a lane. Stick to it.
Stay in your lane, bro.
Stay in your lane.
You see that commercial?
I mean, it's great to have multiple lanes. I mean, I've given that advice so many times in the last month. The guys are just all over the place, especially when they're just starting out. It's like, man, all I did was buy and hold for 10 years. That's it. So, and then just push yourself out of your comfort zone, whether it's your work, your exercise, your spiritual, your wealth building, your family, etc. Just think about what buckets you have in your life and try to push those, expand those comfort zones.
I'm big on the comfort zone.
Yeah.
We're here doing this radio show. That's not something I ever trained in, grew up in, or did, but it's something that's really helped us out too. So That's great, Dan. I appreciate it, man. You good? Anything else?
Yep, I'm good. Thank
you. All
you.
right. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to the CrestCore Real Estate Hour. We really appreciate you. This topic was good for the last couple of weeks. We'll be back next Wednesday at 10 a.m. right here live on our Facebook page. You guys take care. We'll see you next week.